Welcome, and thank you for joining us for Film and Talk, a virtual screening of A Postcard to Nina. My name is Gladys Ramirez, Public Programs Manager and your host for the evening. Tonight's program is presented as part of Art After Dark and the Norton's Vista series, taking a look at people and cultures from Central America, South America, and the Caribbean through art, live programs like this, literary events, music, and more. The Vista series is totally virtual and runs through October 12th. In case you missed it or want to see what's next, you can find out more on our website. A special thank you to Art Bridges, whose generosity makes Vista possible. Please note there is some brief use of adult language in this film. The runtime is 13 minutes. Stick around after the movie and join us for a conversation with Ronald Baez, the film's director, and Diana Garley, who played Nina. Join us in the chat on YouTube and Facebook. Let us know what you think and what questions you have for our guests. We hope you enjoy this virtual screening of A Postcard to Nina.
I told my dad that you were my boyfriend. And by the way, if he asks, you're converting, okay?
Hola, ya llegaron, pasen, pasen. Así que este es Sean, ¿eh?
John.
Sean.
Bueno, ¿y cómo fue que ustedes se conocieron?
Quizá te dice,
Es un detector de mentiras.
não passou o capala avec papa pour juste dele,
Are you serious?
Oui.
Pronto se llevará a mi hija muy lejos, ¿eh?
Qui ça dit? Pas penser papa c'est un mal monde
I
lié.
never said he
So dis-moi
was.
qui ça lié?
Mija, ten cuidado. Esa es la manera más rápida de perder a un buen hombre.
Pas se le connaît.
Why do you say that?
Papa c'est tout yem.
Great film, definitely leaves us wanting more. So I'd like to introduce you to our guest for this evening, Ronald Baez, the film's writer and director. Welcome, Ronald.
Hello. Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
And Diana Garley, the actor who played Nina. Welcome, Diana.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yep, and thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to everyone who's joining us live on Facebook, on YouTube, and thanks for adding your comments. Ronald, Diana, I'm really happy to have you here because even though it's a short film, there's a lot to dive into. I want to start by mentioning that this film has experienced a lot of success lately and during this year's festival season. Ronald, can you tell us where you've been showing the film and where the film's headed next?
Sure. So we were fortunate enough to have our world premiere at the Mobile Motion Film Festival in Zurich just around May, and then we premiered. We had our U.S. Premiere in actually it was our North American premiere at HBO's New York Latino Film Festival, and we just wrapped up our Canadian premiere at Inside Out Toronto, which is a very large LGBT film festival in Canada. And it looks like we might be heading overseas again. Recently, we have been working with some film festivals, one in Australia. There's two more in Europe who are interested in screening the film as well. So it looks like we might be heading out and then making our way back for late, kind of like late in the year, early winter next year for 2021. Back in the States for some more festival screenings before we finally just find a way to put it online for the audience.
Nice. Well, fingers crossed and congratulations. I know that you mentioned it was a selection for the Mobile Motion Film Festival. So I wanted to really jump off by talking about that. You shot it on a Samsung Galaxy phone.
Yeah. Yeah. So this film was actually shot on a Samsung Galaxy S8, which was a very deliberate decision, something that we spoke a lot about. Our kind of, we call him like the Postmaster General, our post-production guru, Eddie Moon, who does all of the amazing work in post-production. He was not happy with that decision to start with. Yeah. But it really just stemmed from the idea of communication and how so much communication takes place on our phones today, and how we really do build these substantial relationships online. As I think COVID has been a really, really big test of that particular fact, that we've seen how substantial our relationships can be when they're virtual, we could have these meaningful interactions with each other like we're doing now.
Right. And Diana, you're an accomplished actor. I think you started as a child actor, right, on a telenovela.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
you're also a social media maven. How is it marrying those two things in this film?
It's so cool because it really is this generation's way of communication. As much as we don't even want that, it's just what is being forced onto us. So to see, the social media and the bonds being brought to light in such a positive way is so refreshing. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the times you think social media and you think, oh, social media, obligations, it's a presence. It's not real, But to see two characters who really become friends, like cyber friends, and then best friends, and like he does this for her, he lies to her family, and really convinces her to open up to her family, and that all started from a direct message. So it's such an interesting kind of storyline, and that waves into putting a positive spin on these little devices that we keep in our pockets.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I think resonated with me as well, is that, I've had relationships start on apps. I've had friendships start on social media. I know people who have made friends through video games. And it's such a thing for millennials, Gen Zers. And I really liked, as a viewer, that you brought it in so it didn't feel like an afterthought. It felt like part of the experience, which really solidified the relationship, which brings me to my next point. I want to talk about the use of language. It felt so authentic to the South Florida experience to have the characters switching back between Spanish and Creole and English. And I wanted to know how much of that was scripted, how much of that was improvised. Ronald?
So there was a lot of scripting going on there. A lot of that was kind of developed with the actors as well. So every actor had to rewrite the script in their own language. And I wanted to give them an opportunity to completely rewrite the script and just kind of take what I had written as a guideline, and then kind of build from there in their own linguistic value. So there was this kind of give and take between the actors that I wanted to kind of feel authentic. And I knew that there would be a challenge there. So I definitely think that having them write the characters in their own voices was important. And I think that it kind of really shows the nature of the character and the nature of the actor kind of blended really well.
Yeah, I love that, because it's sometimes, you watch a show about, the Russian dynasty, and they all have English accents, and it feels not as real,
Yeah.
And I love that
Yeah.
they all spoke and they kind of communicated, because it gives it that texture that was really enjoyable.
Yeah. There was definitely a lot of I had a big concern as to whether or not they were going to struggle to communicate. That was one of the really beautiful things I discovered in the process, was just how seamlessly they were able to kind of transition between language. I think Diana had a hell of an experience kind of running with two different languages on either side there.
Yeah, so I actually didn't have to rewrite it because my part was already written in English.
Yeah.
But it definitely brought a trust within the actors for us to talk about it, and how would this sound? Would it, just even cadence of a different language might make a line sound a little bit more harsh, or won't sound as severe and stuff. So it's it was really important for them rewriting their lines, and us kind of talking it through brought a really interesting trust within the whole team and the whole production, that I think helped make it seem so seamless and make it seem so comfortable with each other, that it was we just, we were very, we knew what our characters wanted. We knew what the point of the scene was. And we just trusted each other to really know. And it was so interesting because we would talk, and it was we know what the scene's about, but it was we never really said, okay, so he's going to say it like this, like Don's going to say this line like this, and then you're going to respond with this line. We never had that conversation. It just kind of naturally happened. And I think it came a lot with the trust Ron's trust in us to kind of bring it to life.
That's great, and it's so interesting that you bring up the actors having to translate, because so many times you think of a literal translation, right? But there's something to be said about in something like this, that you're translating the emotion behind it, or the connotation of what you're saying, the subtext, and it's really great that you gave them the license to kind of flesh out that story.
Yeah, so I think that part of the process of creating something substantial is definitely trying to empower kind of the genius around you. Letting the people around you shine just makes you shine even brighter. And so I think that I'm lucky enough that I run a collective where I get to work with my childhood friends. And so we have this really intense trust with each other. And I think that kind of lends itself to every project that we do. So anyone that we bring into our circle, whether it's Diana or Don or anyone who comes in to make a film with us, we have an equal amount of faith and an equal amount of trust in their ability to perform. And so really most of the job gets done once you're cast. Once you have the actors that you know you want to work with, it's just about trusting them and letting them make their decisions.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, like everybody in the team, you know, Ron, Eddie, Kevin, like everybody is always so honest and open about what's happening. So you're never wondering like what you know what I mean? Like Ron's process as a director is so open and honest, and he's just so trusting with like, if you feel like you need to internalize this, then we're going to adjust all cameras for that. You know, it's just, it is a collective. It really feels like a team, you know, and everybody's like working for this cool project together. It never felt like there's projects where you're just like, okay, this is a job, this is something, and it just feels like just hanging out with friends making a cool, you know, film.
I remember there was a really interesting moment with Diana where we were in rehearsal, and I was trying to explain to her what one of like the ideas that we had was. We were only going to move the camera if she moves. And it was like this give and take where it was like, if you
That's
choose
what I was
not
talking
to,
about.
Yeah, it was like, if you choose not to move, I won't move the camera. And like our DP is going to follow you. And so if you move back, he's going to move up. And so on. And so, and she was so like, I think the first time I told you that, you just looked at me, you were like, I control the camera. And I was like, yeah. And you were just so weirded out by that. And I think it's so interesting how it worked out, because it ended up being this really, really intense thing where whenever, for example, Ernesto leaves and suddenly you look up and you look directly at Don, and suddenly like having you move back slightly, you know, Kevin Barry's the cinematographer, knew to kind of follow you, and you guys had to build kind of your own language, which was interesting to watch in the monitor for me, because I was always like, I wonder what she's going to do next, and I wonder how Kevin Barry's will respond. I think it really speaks to how organic the communication was on the set, where whether you were behind a camera, whether you were speaking in two languages at the same time, which Diana does extremely efficiently in the film, it was really about being able to follow each other into the dark.
That's such an interesting line between subject and medium. So I do want to tie it all together here with the program. So this is all part of the Vista series. We're taking a look at people, cultures, arts from South America, Central America, the Caribbean. And your work has such a strong influence to the Caribbean. We have Caribbean filmmaker, we have Caribbean actors, or they're portraying Caribbean characters. I wanted to ask Ronald, Diana, how do you identify? And how does that play a part in how you brought the story or the character to life in the film?
Diana, you want to kill that one first?
Well, I am a Mexican Colombian, but I also grew up in Miami. So for me, it was a big. I consider myself Hispanic, and for me it was a big thing to really showcase the melting pot that is Miami, you know, and that is like I'm a poor girl from Hialeah, you know, like I am Cuban by association. So it was important for me in this film to really like like showcase and spotlight what it's like growing up here, because like, you know, growing up, I speak Spanglish. That's my language. That's my native language is Spanglish. It's not Spanish, it's not English. It's the combination, and then we go to Spanish, and then we go to English. So that was something that for this film, I was like, this is perfect. Like that's how I identified it for Nina in particular.
Right. Ronald?
Estoy súper de acuerdo. I think she's absolutely right. So I think that for me, I immediately identify myself as Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean to be specific. I'm Dominican, Lebanese. I was born in the United States. I was the first American born in my family. But that's how I identify outwardly. Inwardly, I identify as pure Miamian. I identify as 305 till I die. And I think that one of the things that was really important to me was to try and bring this story that originally takes place in Berlin into my space, the space I grew up in, the space where Pero-like rules, and you know, all of these things work really well together, because I think that there's an intense, deep, and sincere harmony between these conflicting cultures. And I think that it's difficult for people who maybe haven't had the fortune to experience life in this kind of dichotomy to see how harmonious these two things exist together, and like how well they can kind of jive. So where someone else might hear Spanglish, or like Diana said it perfectly, they this concept of mixing English and Spanish, and they might be confused by that. For us who grew up in this space, there's a perfect harmony between these things. And it really says something about the way that like these cultures can combine. So outwardly, I identify as Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean. Inwardly, I identify as pure Miamian.
You know what I love is that through this series, I've asked a lot of people, and even if they're from the same place geographically, I've never heard one same answer. And so it's very interesting, and it does have an influence. And I want you to, Ronald, talk a little bit about where the idea for this film came from, because aside from the obvious, the language, the Miami flavors, the cell phone thing, you're really digging deep here into issues of family relationships, the LGBT community. Can you talk a little bit about where this idea came from for this film?
Sure. So there's this brilliant Swedish singer-songwriter named Jans Lekman. He's actually the first credit immediately after the close of the film. This is based on Postcard to Nina by Jans Lekman. It's actually based on the lyrics of his song titled "The Postcard to Nina," and in the song, same story except that it takes place in Berlin, and it's like her postcard friend, her letter writing friend, goes to her father's house in Berlin and plays the beard. But immediately, for someone from Miami, living in Miami, or someone who understands the culture of Miami, the complexities of that are infinitely more accessible in a space like Miami, where you have these complicated relationships and responsibilities to family, these complicated relationships and responsibilities to certain kinds of attitudes towards the LGBT community, certain kinds of attitudes towards race, towards gender and gender affiliation, gender roles. There's a lot going on there. So sometimes I'll have like an African-American friend or an Afro-Caribbean friend watch this film and be like, it's so weird that he's so nice to this Black man. And then I'll have this like LGBT friend watch this film and be like, it's so weird that, she's struggling with this. I feel like she's not rebellious enough. And like they have all these different perspectives. But the truth is, I grew up in a place where all of those perspectives are vibrant and they're all accessible. And so when I heard A Postcard to Nina, the song, I was like, Berlin's cool, but Miami's better. So let's do it in Miami.
Yeah, and I really love
that
seeing those two characters together, because they're never, for me, I can't think of anything. Someone correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but I can't think of something I've seen on film, on TV, that it has a Cuban character and a Haitian character. But as a person who grew up in Miami myself, that's just so the norm. And to see them come together on screen, it's just like, it was great for me because I felt like, oh, I'm represented. Like, oh, I know those people. You know, I don't know those people, but I know those people. I know somebody, you know, with a conservative or religious family, as Catholicism or Christianity is very important to many of the immigrant communities in South America and across the United States. And I was so interested in, and I was always kind of chasing the story about there's a secret, there's something going on, who's she blowing kisses to, like, and then when it all clicked at the end, and I really loved it because it was a lot of things, but it didn't feel like it was trying to be a lot of things. It felt really organic. So Diana, let me ask you, how does it feel for you in portraying this character and as a person who is on camera, who watches film, watches TV? Do you feel this kind of representation is important?
100%. 100%. I don't think it is shown as much right now in the industry, you know, for everything. Though, you know, LGBT is not, you know, it's not being portrayed as a normal thing, you know, and cultures colliding together also, you know what I mean? Like, and so I think that this film is so important because it does do all that, you know, it brings to light so many things, like Ron was saying, like you were saying, that just make things like that's so organic to us. It's so, yeah, my neighbor and my other neighbor, and we all kind of sit and hang out and drink, you know, hoopinha or something, you know. So I don't think, you know, I don't think that there's enough of that, you know, and it's like we live in such a cool place. South Florida in general is so interesting, you know. We're so tropical and we're so diverse and we're so, you know, there's so many things happening here, and I just wish that more film, more everything was based down here, because we have such a deep rooted cultural community, you know, that's not spoken about.
And Ronald, as a filmmaker, as somebody who is really involved in the South Florida film community, does it feel like it's becoming easier to tell these stories, or harder, or new challenges every day?
I think it's getting a lot easier to tell these stories.
I think people are speaking up more.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I also think that the South Florida film scene has coalesced a great deal in like the last 5 to 10 years, and you have a lot of people who are responsible for that. But ultimately, when you see when you see films from South Florida like T, this Keisha Ray Witherspoon short that won the Golden Bear at Berlin, or Liberty, you know, this beautiful film by Farron Humes, going to Berlin as well, winning the Grand Jury Prize at South by Southwest. When you see our community flourish as filmmakers, it starts to give us permission to say, hey, look, I'm going to go ahead and do this myself, and to not wait for someone to tell you it's good to do, but rather to be inspired by the people around you. I'd say it's become a lot easier now that we've coalesced a great deal. If you're a Miami filmmaker and you need help making a film, this is a great time to be that person. It's a great time to see other filmmakers do well. It's a great time to see filmmakers who are coming up reach out to people like us and be like, hey, I'm trying to make a movie. Can you help me? And the answer is almost exclusively yes. That's
great. And Diana, we're almost out of time, but I did want to get your thinking on one more thing. As an actor, a working actor, does it feel like you ever hit upon resistance in trying to develop the characters that you want to develop? I mean, you had a great opportunity here with Ronald and A Postcard to Nina to kind of explore these different avenues of characters, but are you given the opportunity to explore such a diverse character in your normal film career?
I've been pretty lucky, I will say that I have been pretty lucky do diverse characters, and I definitely feel like I've been very blessed in my career, but I definitely think that times right now are changing, and they're changing for the better. They're changing for the Latino community. They're changing for the minority community. So I'm really looking forward to seeing, you know, when life gets a little bit back to normal and, you know, productions open up a lot more, to seeing how many roles I'll be able to get to actually portray the girl, like who I actually am, you know, like a Mexican American or Colombian American, you know, because I don't see that very often. I don't think I've ever played like a Colombian American girl or something like that, you know, and so I was given this avenue with Postcard, but I have been able to play a lot of different diverse characters, especially diverse in like religion, and I've played a lot of European characters too, but definitely not in the like Hispanic community. And I think it's really, really exciting to this time that like it's becoming, you know, a big thing that we're, you know, that Latinos are writing for themselves, you know, the minority groups are writing for themselves, because I'm looking forward to being able to play not necessarily myself, but the girl who I was 4 years ago, you know what I mean? Yeah. And seeing and being able to represent my community, my earpod fell, represent my community, you know, in a authentic way.
That's great. And it's really encouraging as somebody who's been moderating a couple of these conversations through the Vista series, which it looks to expand on that concept of Hispanic heritage, and to really see the shift that's going on. Because when I do ask about representation, of course it's important, but now it's important and it's happening and it's expanding.
Right.
So Ronald, Diana, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Congratulations on all the film success.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
And that's it for tonight's program. To see the full schedule of events for our Vista series, please visit norton.org. And while you're there, please consider making a donation to support programs like this. A special thanks again to Art Bridges for their support, and thanks to you, the audience watching us live, for supporting our programs presented in a new way. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.